understanding your audience is something that I help people do very, very frequently in my work. And a lot of times there's this disconnect between who the brand ideally should be working with and who is currently an audience member or in their social media sphere or in their online pool of contacts, right? There's this disconnect between who they should be working with and who's currently seeing their content. This is very common, and it's also good news, very, very, very fixable, right? With a little bit of time and kind of intentional focus, you can adjust your messaging to start attracting the people that you should be attracting online. So to start, when you've realized that your online audience isn't exactly who you want it to be, or your messaging isn't resonating, or your sales aren't right, or a variety of other things, you need to first not look at the data. This might sound kind of funny coming from me, a data and marketing nerd, but I'm serious, right? I have seen this happen several different times with past clients and just business owners in general. They're like, well, my audience isn't right, but my ideal target is women 45 to 65. I'm like, okay, well, where'd you get that info? And they're like, oh, it's on my Instagram or my Facebook. Like, okay, well, you just told me these aren't the right people. Don't pull that data. Okay? So step one, ignore the metrics. And you're like, great, Carolyn, I never look at them anyways. Perfect, we're on the right track. Step two, know what you provide in very specific detail. Know the services and products that you provide and start thinking about where they fit in with a person's life. So start thinking about what it is you offer, how you ideally want to offer it, like what's the best way for you to offer this product or service, and then see where that starts fitting in with people. So for example, if your product, a physical product, is an airport for birds, you might start thinking like, okay, well, I sell it through my website and people who buy it have to be comfortable buying e-commerce and it ships, but it's 3 feet by 3 feet. So people who want this product need to have space for it, and they probably like birds. So apartment dwellers might not be ideal because they might not have access to an outdoor space that's 3 feet by 3 feet. So you can see how, like, when you know your product or your service and how you offer it and how it could potentially impact a person's life, you can start to formulate some more information about who your ideal audience and ideal clients are. The next step is to speak to the pain that the client is facing, but to focus deeply on the transformation that they need. We're done with fear-based marketing. It's yucky, it's gross, we don't want that. We want positive, transformation-focused marketing that builds relationships, right? I hope so, because that's what I teach. That's why you're here, right? So in this little example I'm about to give, thinking about transformation versus pain, say there's a laundry soap brand and they have a short video that's a piece of content that is going to help promote and sell their product and hopefully attract the right people. If 75% of that video time is spent showing dirty laundry and only 25% is spent showing the clean laundry, the transformation, what are we going to associate the brand with? Dirty laundry. And while that might be a positive, it's also going to put the negative outcome tied to the brand. Versus if you shift that and you have 75% of the content showing clean laundry and then 25% showing dirty, you're going to associate that brand with the images of clean clothes, right? Not me looking at my laundry that I have to do later. But think about it in that way, right? Like, they're both talking about the pain, the annoyance of laundry or dirty or tough stains or whatever. But one is focused on that pain and the other is focused on the transformation. Now, in some cases, you're also going to have an audience that does not want the transformation, that is not ready to be transformed or to use the product or service. And that is okay, but you don't want to be speaking to them. For example, there was a client I had very early in my career that they sold a modification for an existing product, right? Their content was attracting people who were enthusiastic about the product as it was. They didn't want a modification. They loved how it existed. They weren't ready for a transformation. When we realized that after assessment, we're like, okay, you're talking to people who really don't want this transformation yet, or they're not problem aware. They don't realize that the modification would be a positive thing, or they just in general don't want to modify the product. When you shift and you start talking more to the people who are like, yes, I'm aware that I want this modified, or I know that there's a problem with the product as it is, and I want to change it for this, I'm ready for the transformation, that resulted in so much more sales and just conversions in general, leads, website traffic, and also the development of further modified products, because the audience was like, hey, have you realized that this is also a problem to the brand? They were talking to the right people. Those people were enthusiastic, ready for a transformation, and aware of the pain. And they were really, really adamant about adapting the product further. So that was another secondary behavioral type thing that we're going to talk about in step 5. We're on step 3. So that is speaking to the pain and then focusing on the transformation. Step 4, I've talked about this in other videos. We're going to talk about it again because it is my favorite marketing hack of all times. Know the year in your ideal client's life. What does your ideal client go through in a calendar year, even if it feels unrelated to your brand? For example, for my brand, a lot of my clients that I have built websites for in the past are they're product retailers, right? The end of the year is really crazy for them. My needs, I like to build websites at the beginning of the year, to do a couple projects when some of my other projects are slower, like January through March. Love to build a website. November through October through December, crazy time for those types of clients. I don't want them making a decision then. They're not going to make good choices because they're stressed, right? They're focused on other things. It's not like that's bad. It's just that's not when I want them to be making the choice to work with me for a website. So my marketing has to shift, being aware that those clients are experiencing bad environments or non-conducive environments for good decision making during the end of the year. I need to shift my marketing to either talk about websites earlier in the year or to foster those relationships with potential clients for website builds earlier in the year before quarter 4. It just makes it easier because I'm predicting their needs. It's not December 31st and they're like, we should redo the website. They're like, yeah, you know what? Next January, let's just get through this holiday season. Next January, let's rebuild the website. Let's talk to Carolyn about that. That's the ideal situation for me. And I wouldn't have thought about that if I hadn't have really sat down and taken a good look at what each of my different kind of client profiles experiences at different times of the year. It's really important to look at that and see where you fit in. Some of your clients may potentially be parents. So maybe them having kids home in the summer, that maybe impacts how they interact with your brand. Maybe they travel certain times of the year. Maybe they live in an area that snows a bunch, so your beach wear isn't going to be well received part of the year. Or maybe it will be greatly well received because they travel to LA every fall and winter. Thinking about what they do in a full year is going to help you understand them better and predict their needs. Which brings us to step 5. If you forget everything else about this video, think about this last step. When you're defining your ideal audience and your ideal clients, you need to know what behaviors they exhibit and how you want to be treated in a business relationship. Whether your product or going to be working with them for a longer period of time as a service provider, how people behave impacts how you as a business owner can interact with them. For product-based businesses, Maybe you're better suited to sell to wholesalers versus direct to consumer. Maybe the reverse is true. Maybe you can only sell in physical spaces. Maybe it's better for e-commerce spaces. Those are behaviors, right? If your current audience is really skeptical about purchasing things online, that's not a good behavior if you're a purely e-commerce brand. You're going to have a harder time converting those people versus attracting people who are already avid online shoppers to your brand. Additionally, this is more for my freelancers and service providers who may be in the audience today. There's a level of how you best work and who you best work with that you need to think about when you're kind of considering who your ideal audience is. So some of the things that for my brand I consider really frequently are, how does a really great partner work with me? How does a really great business owner, brand rep, whomever I'm working with, how do they engage with me? My list is varied and not everybody checks all of these boxes, but there's some that are like must-haves, including things like communicative, whatever format that we agree that we're going to communicate on, whether that's email, phone calls, texting, whatever. I want to know that we're going to have good communication. Another thing is that they are able to get me the requested content that I need. So they have follow through, they're able to achieve and get me things that I need, whether it's photos or videos or, whatever else for whatever project we're working on. I'm going to need stuff from them. The ability to trust and release control to a degree, right? Like, it's their brand. It's very personal to them. Bringing in a contractor to help them with their marketing can be really scary. So I need them to be willing to be vulnerable, to trust me, to trust my expertise, and to, even if they are feeling like a sense of unwillingness to fully let go of parts of the process, that they're again willing to communicate that with me. So there are a ton of different behaviors that you could want your audience to exhibit. What that looks like for your marketing and for your online presence is you are going to start championing those behaviors. So I want clients who are curious, who are willing to learn, who are willing to take risks and experiment. So in my content, I celebrate that a lot. I talk about how exciting it has been in my business to take different risks, try something new, to publicly fail at things. And you can kind of see the audience that's becoming attracted to the content, that resonates with them because they're also on that journey themselves. So sort of that relatable pieces of content within what I create for my brand helps start the vetting process of like, yes, these behaviors that I exhibit, that I care about my clients exhibiting, these people are resonating with as well, at least for a start. You never know about people's behavior until you're working with them or you're having conversations, but it's a start, right? I don't want to present something online where I'm like, I will check in with every single client for a 2-hour call every single, it's not going to happen. That's not how I operate. If a client wants that, they're probably going to have to find another service provider because that's not the way I operate. And that is a piece that through content, through, kind of this behavior modeling, I'm able to start to attract the right people. So I hope all of that makes sense. Getting the right audience can feel like an uphill battle, but this is something that we talk about in depth frequently in Bad X Biz Club, which is free to join. It's an online community off social media. There's links down below. I would love to see you there and to hear about your audience and how you're defining and attracting the right people to your brand online. Yeah? All right, drop a comment or join us over in Biz Club to continue this conversation. Until next time, stay Bad X.